Hello, book talk and bookstagrammers out there. This is my first review of the year. I supposed to finish it last year, but long story short, I could not finish it. It's a very detailed book. It's a very compelling book, and the book that I read is The Woman, Kristin Hannah. Uh, she paid homage to the woman who served in Vietnam, uh, nurses, obviously. Back then, a lot of things went on, and one of them was this disregard of women serving in a war. The dismissal. It's just wow. It outstanding. It was crazy. This is a historical domestic fiction and a war story. I may add it has also a psychological, obviously, in the mix. If you really think about it, the implications that happen after the war with everyone that served in Vietnam. I do not want to include spoilers because I don't want to ruin it, but I can describe it the best that I can in my abilities because it was very impactful for me. Frankie, as what everybody called her, McGrath, came from a prominent, wealthy family. She had a brother that died also in the war, and she wanted to prove herself to her father because she felt like a second fiddle to her father. She wanted for her father to feel proud of her. But I'm not going to get into details because, again, I don't want to spoil the story. It was a phenomenal book because it was well written. How you can tell the protagonist how naive, you can say, protected. She was in a bubble, In those days, as a boomer, a woman's supposed to just be married young and have kids. And you can see her character develop as how she enters and then through the trajectory of the story until the very end. She pursued a nursing career and enlisted in the army in 1966. She traded her shelter life for a very brutal awakening at the Vietnam War. And through that trajectory, like every other war hero, they develop PTSD. I mean, I'm not gonna continue be more detail about the book because I don't want to ruin for anybody else. But it's very, it keeps you on your toes, pretty much. I couldn't put it down. And then I put it down sometimes because I was like, oh my God, this is too much to take. It's just too brutal because it's very detailed. It tells you the bombings, the victims, burn victims. It just, again, Kristin Hannah, pay tribute to the women that served at war, that they were forgotten. And they were, when they came back to the United States, they were treated like a second, third person. Like they didn't care about them, and they were forgotten. I meant to say like an afterthought, They were treated like an afterthought, like women don't serve in Vietnam War. But I was a nurse. Yeah, that's a no. And how if you're a nurse, you're not suffering from anything. Like breathe, let it go. You see things. You see things that you shouldn't be seeing. Right there. Like it's traumatic. And thank God that we live in today's society that PTSD is more broad now. 9/11, even car crash. depends on the severity. You can suffer from PTSD to the lesson compared to the more intense traumatic situations like a war, child abuse, kids, is a war in the mind, in a psychological war in the mind. They need to survive, so they do mental acrobatics in order to survive. What does that do to a body in a mental state? You eventually, the person eventually become in disarray, emotionally dysregulated. The PTSD, the body keeps track, even though some people might be in denial, but the body keeps track. And what do they do to suppress those emotions? A lot of people, they become alcoholics, they become binge eaters, they become they're purgers, or they drug addicts, because they want to suppress the trauma. I don't want to go to psychological details, but I can go on and on for about a whole hour, because this book, I'm beside myself, because it was detailed. It shows the aftermath after she came home, and poor girl, poor woman. My goodness, I wish I can say so many things, and I wish I can elaborate more, but I'm gonna keep it as a mystery. I gave it a 5 because it happened in real life. I mean, even though it's a historical fiction, it's a war story, but it did happen in real. It's still, to this day, it does happen. People that come from and deal with wars, they deal with PTSD, and it's life, is how they deal with civilian life, how they cope with life. Like, things trigger them. Some of them, they can't even hold jobs, and a lot of people don't understand that, and they don't know themselves. Like, what's wrong with me? Why I'm breaking out in sweats? Why I'm having all these situations? And that's derived with a lot of people becoming alcoholics and drug addicts and all that. But I recommend this book. If you're into history, there's psychological in it. There's domestic, the parents, daughter dynamics. There's the sisterhood with her and her female friends that she made in Vietnam, serving, and compassion, and how the world operates when no one can understand you, and you trying to seek help. I want to get better. Why nobody can understand me and hear me as a woman? You know what I mean? And you being seen as an afterthought. It grind my gears. As a person who always like fight for your rights, that kind of thing. But it was intense for me. But a very compelling book, and I recommend it to y'all. And happy reading. Thank you for listening.